What is the most used man-made material on Earth? You guessed right. It's concrete. Look around. It's everywhere. Sidewalks, driveways, foundations, floor you stand on, and even entire buildings are made out of concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we'll explore one concrete-related topic with the help from industry professionals that are shaping the future of the trade. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even some proponents of competing materials about their views of concrete and their vision of its future. Hey, Concrete Logic podcast listeners. This week, we pick up the conversation with Ron Macken about the different residential building concrete systems that he's been researching for the last 4 years in his pursuit to not only rebuild a home that he lost to a wildfire, but also to start a business. And we had half of our conversation on episode 18. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to that episode before. Here we just got done talking about precast, and we're rolling right into 3D printing. So that's where where the conversation is going to pick up here. So hope you enjoy. Yeah, you're going to talk about 3D printing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's... Is that your next one?
Yeah, we can do that one. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good segue. You were saying how they were putting in the normal interior finishes that you see in a wood framed house, and kind of takes away the whole purpose of doing precast panels.
Right.
And you're going to talk about 3D printing. So so they built a 3D printed house here in Richmond.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah. Which is really cool. They, went up there, set up the big gantry, and this machine, spit out the walls and everything. But I've seen pictures. I haven't been to the house yet, so.
Yeah, I think did Alquist do that one?
I believe so. Yeah, they're nearby. I think they're out in Charlottesville. But what they did though is they did the same interior. So you took away all the benefit of having the concrete on the outside, and you ended up putting, the drywall and all that other fun stuff that they put in a stick frame house, and that kind of like you said, that kind of takes away the whole purpose. There can't be no cost savings there.
Yeah, there's not. In fact, so there's. I'm trying to see here. There's a podcast where they talked about like the myths of 3D printing, and it was unbelievable. I mean, they really just ripped it to shreds. And this is somebody who was kind of in the industry, and he said that currently 3D printing, the costs are 20 to 40% higher than conventional construction. I mean, to me, the way to think about 3D printing is that, who knows what they're going to be doing 25 years from now. It could be amazing. But where they are right now, we all know how houses go up. It takes a while to do the foundation. The framing and the kind of outer shell goes up super fast. And then it takes forever to do electrical, plumbing, HVAC, interior and exterior finishes, all that, right? So they've essentially automated the fastest step in the home building process, and at least as of right now, they haven't touched any of the other steps. So, they've kind of captured people's imagination, and they've done an amazing job with PR, and, there's been some real misinformation about a $12,000 house and this kind of stuff. But where it's really at is, like you're saying, they're basically just putting down, they're just gooping out to, an outside concrete wall and an inside concrete wall. And then they have to fill that inside with insulation, spray foam or something like that. You've got the utilities running inside. Some of them are doing sheetrock on the inside, and some of them have gone away from that. But at the moment, I mean, it takes them like a week to set up that printer in some cases, and then they print the walls in 24 hours. So then they say it's 24 hours, but really, like, you had a crew out there for a week and a day, not a day. Well, then they got to take the thing apart, unless you're doing a bunch next to each other. So I really think.
Yeah, I think. Sorry to interrupt you, Ron. I think that we were talking before we got started here about industries that keep things close to their chest. They don't share what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate that there's 3D companies out there that aren't sharing their challenges that they're having and their successes. You're seeing all the successes, but you're not seeing the challenges. I'm not saying they're all doing that, but there's the ones that are out there, out in front, are not sharing that, and I think that's gonna be detrimental to them, because there's a lot of folks in the concrete industry that want to see 3D printing succeed, but if they're not sharing the challenges that they're having, I don't think they're going to get a lot of experienced concrete folks to help them out, without saying, "Hey, this is the problem that we're having," and looking at the folks that have been in this industry for decades and saying, "Hey, can you help us out?" I only see fresh faces in that industry. I don't see any guys with decades. And again, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm seeing. And I think they could. Like you said, they got a long ways to go. I also think that they need to stop trying to build the typical rectangular or square homes. I've talked to 3D printing guys that don't do construction, just 3D printing guys, and they said 3D printing is great if you're building one-offs, but if you're building a bunch of the same thing, any kind of trinket or gizmo or whatever, over and over and over and over again, usually there's a cheaper way of doing it.
Yeah.
3D printing. So
yeah. Well, I think too, if you're anyone who's thinking about 3D printing, you really have three different groups. You have the people that are making the printers. So those companies, they have a lot of technical expertise. And then normally they have some kind of consultant or somebody that's doing their mixed design, whatever their concrete or whatever they're doing. And those people have a lot of expertise. And then the actual builder, that could just be anybody, and they're just like renting the machine or buying the machine or whatever, and they don't necessarily know anything, and it's possible for them to get a tremendous amount of publicity and attention, but that's not where the innovation is really happening. So anyway, I think for me it's important to say, okay, are these people, are they making the machine? Are they renting the machine? Where do they fall in this situation?
Yeah. All right. So Ron's not picking 3D printing.
No. So we'll quickly go through ICF. I think a lot of people are familiar with that. Basically, you've got a exterior EPS foam, and that foam is both the insulation and the form that holds the concrete. You've got people like Fox Block, Bill Block, Nudera that do those. And then basically, once everything is stood up, you use a ready mix truck, and you fill those forms. They tend to do kind of smaller lifts because blowouts are a possibility with that. It does have the advantage that they're easy to assemble. They're kind of like gigantic Lego blocks. The concrete that goes inside those things is pretty basic concrete. It's easy to transport stuff to the job site. But then, for me, the big problem with ICF is you need sheetrock on the inside for fire safety, fire code. And then in the exterior, typically they install that peel and stick moisture barrier and then some kind of siding or stucco or something like that. So in terms of that wall unit, the foam is not durable. So you got to do all that work besides. So, to me, I know there's still a ton of construction with ICF, and a lot of people are really happy with it. But if you're trying to go for kind of an affordability thing, I think those are the limitations, like what we talked about before, from kind of a simplicity of the wall assembly. So then now we're on to the two ones that I consider the best way to build concrete houses. So one is ICCF, which is insulating composite concrete forms. And that's basically like an ICF, except the exterior is a rigid material. So for example, like Perfect Block, they take recycled EPS and they mix it with cement and some admixtures. And so that foam all of a sudden isn't soft, it's a more rigid surface. And then there's Fast Wall. They use like a mineralized wood and cement mixture to make that outside, but it's also insulating. So Perfect Block, they won the IHS Product of the Year in 2020, which I think is a pretty good endorsement. Then it's got the big advantage that you don't need sheetrock on the interior. That what they have is considered fireproof, so you can go straight to, you could do a plaster finish, you basically do whatever you want on the inside, but you don't need sheetrock. And then in a similar way, the outside is, they can go straight to something like a stucco finish on the exterior. They also have the advantage that it's easier to keep the walls flat and straight because the blocks are more rigid. Some people have had that problem with ICF, not everybody. And then they do use a little bit of like either adhesive or mortar between the blocks as part of standing that all up. And it's mostly to just keep that form together when they fill it up with concrete.
Huh. And that's called what? Perfect Block?
Perfect Block is one of the manufacturers, yeah, and Fast Wall is another one. I could send you those links if you'd like that.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, we'll share those.
Okay, and then the last one is SCIPs, which is structural concrete insulated panels. I mentioned that before. You basically have, say, 5 inches of EPS foam in the center, and then on the inside and outside, you've got a wire mesh, like a 2-inch by 2-inch grid wire mesh. And then one of the keys to it is they have these diagonals that go through the foam and are welded to the 2 different mesh sizes. So it creates like a truss system. So you basically, even though it's foam and wire, the block on itself, the panel on itself is pretty strong. And you basically stand these things up. You with rebar, you attach them to the foundation, and then you use like a low velocity spray pump. So shotcrete is kind of like more of a fire hose. It's too much for these panels. And so what's better is more of like a plaster sprayer, mortar sprayer, basically a smaller pump. And then so what you're doing is you're spraying 2 inches of concrete on the interior and exterior walls. So what's tough about it is getting the right concrete mixture, having that right pump, to be all set up so that you can really do a good job with applying that concrete. Because, if your concrete cracks, it's not good. I mean, that's the structural strength of the house. So you've got to make sure that stuff is all dialed in. But the advantage is that you don't need sheetrock on the inside. You don't need any kind of thing on the exterior. You could just paint it or do a stucco or whatever you want on the interior. So I'll be building my house with skip panels and I'm planning on doing a type of plaster on the interior. A little bit more labor, but it looks nicer than paint. And then probably just paint or stucco on the outside. So there's.
And is that the brand Skip Panels?
So there's two manufacturers in the U.S. One is RSG 3D. If you just search for that, you can find them.
Oh, skippanels.com. You have a terrible website.
Yeah, I don't think that's the so if you look up RSG 3D, you'll get to one website.
RSG 3D, you said?
Yeah, RSG and then dash 3D.
Oh, okay, I see it.
And then another manufacturer is Instruct, and that's spelled with two N's.
I know those guys. So they do tilt-up panels for warehouses. So I've spoken to them. So they're good, a great system to look at for a value engineering approach to some of these traditional tilt-up panels.
Right.
So yeah, when you were explaining it, I was like, that sounds like those guys.
Yeah, that's their big market. Yeah, that's their big market right now is things like Amazon warehouses. Yeah, and they're basically they're not spraying that concrete on. They're basically pouring it on the ground and doing a tilt-up kind of model.
Yeah, it's exactly like a tilt-up panel. So you do a layer. So tilt-up panels you form on the ground, and so what you do with their system is you pour a bed of concrete, and then you wet stick these the insulation with the web in it, like you were describing.
Yeah.
You wet stick it into that first layer of concrete, and then you pour the second layer over the top, and it makes that sandwich.
Right.
And then you let it cure just like a tilt-up panel. It's the same thing, but when it's a lot lighter, so you can you're able to use a smaller crane than you would on a normal panel, because these panels can be enormous. So that's I've spoken to them on the phone before. So this is like their residential version of that, and you stand up these panels, and then you spray each side of them essentially, right?
Right. Yeah, you spray the whole exterior of the house. You get that to the full thickness, and then you spray so you spray the exterior walls, and then you spray the interior walls, and then you spray the same panels can be used for the roof and ceiling. That's another advantage that this system has. So you basically spray the concrete on the ceiling. So obviously you need a concrete mix that's good enough that's going to stick, to an overhead surface. And then the top of the roof, you can spray, or a lot of times they'll pour that. But either way, it's the same basic thing. And yeah, so one advantage is, besides where the rebar connects to the foundation, there's way less rebar in that than say with ICF panels or the ICCF panels.
Yeah, because these got to weigh a lot less, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, between the inside, well, you've also got an I-beam effect where you've got the rigidity on the interior and exterior, and then those little truss wires going through the center connect them. So even though it's just a total of 4 inches of concrete, it's much stiffer than, it works like an I-beam. It's much stiffer than you would think it would be.
Do they cut these panels before they bring them out, or do you cut them in the field, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they're basically manufactured 4 feet wide, and then you can get them up to 50 feet long. So, you can do a multi-story house with that if you want to. But so you just order them to whatever length you want, and then you stand them up, and then once everything's stood up and tied together, then you cut your window and door openings, and you would do the electrical and plumbing and that kind of stuff. That all goes on the interior of the wall, and then you spray the concrete.
And it looks like, I'm just looking at this website, the RSG 3D website, and it looks like a lot of these are out west. Have you seen any of these out east? Like, have you seen it or heard anyone building these out east anywhere?
Yeah, so they ship everywhere because these things are inexpensive to ship. You know, you're talking about lightweight panels, and they fit. You can get a bunch of panels on one flatbed truck. There is another company in Pennsylvania that manufactures them, but I think they're mostly in the mining industry. I forget the company name.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so there's a company out of Austria called EVG, and they build the machines. They sell those machines worldwide. So RSG and Instruct are using the same machine. They both have ICC certification, and they have like separate certification and separate building details. But the machine that's building these panels it's all bought out of this one company in Austria.
Huh. I'm laughing because I'm on this RSG 3D website, and there's the page Millennial Homes.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had their own homes. I'm a Gen Xer. I've never seen a Gen X home.
Oh yeah. Well,
but it's cool because they got it looks like they have different plans for different types of homes, depending on your tastes.
Yeah. Well, what
are you obviously for the home that you're building on your property? Are you looking at your own design? Or are you looking at doing something?
Yeah, no, I've got my own design. Yeah, I might have emailed you a little rendering of that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think one of the one of the things that's hard for people to get their head around with houses is, like, if you think about cars, we have no problem just buying a car and it's exactly the same as, whatever, hundreds of thousands of other people. But with our houses, we all like the idea that our houses are unique and designed for the site. And so I think one of the advantages that this system has is you're working with these 4-foot wide panels. You can basically make the house whatever shape you want to fit the site and all that. So you get the advantage that you can customize it, but the actual process of building it is, it doesn't really matter what the shape of the house is. You're basically standing up panels and spraying concrete and doing that type of stuff, no matter what the shape is. And it's really not that different whether there's, big, long, straight walls or more angles. So I think that that's an advantage, is you can design it for the site. People can have unique houses, but there's a lot of commonality in how it's built.
Do you? So the renderings you sent me are based on doing the skips panel.
Right. Yeah, that's with. They're basically designed for Instruct panels.
Oh, Instruct panels. So do you mix the material on site then, and then spray it on, or you don't order it from a ready mix guy down the road and he brings you the whatever mix design? This is something you're going to mix at the site, right?
Well, so this is the thing that was the big puzzle to me a few years ago, and isn't a puzzle now, is I learned about all this and I was like, this is a great way to build houses. And then you get into it and you see that almost nobody builds houses this way. It's more popular in the Philippines and in India than it is in the United States. And so basically, what's happened is that because we don't have a history of building houses out of structural concrete, we just don't have people with that comfort and skill set. So we have stucco people. And so a lot of times what they do is like I heard about a job, a structural engineer told me about a house that was within the last year built with this system. And what they did was they got a huge stucco crew. They had ready mix trucks. They had shotcrete. And so it went incredibly fast, but they had all this rebound with the shotcrete. So 30% of the concrete ended up on the ground, like tremendous amounts of waste. They had huge numbers of people because, as anyone who knows about ready mix trucks knows, you cannot have delays like that. That stuff has got to get out of that truck quickly. And so all that just adds tremendously to the cost of doing it. And so the way that you get around that is, so Quikrete has a subsidiary called Spec Mix. And so instead of the 80-pound bags of ready mix Quikrete that you could buy at Home Depot or whatever, they will custom mix whatever you want in 3,000-pound bags. And then they give you a hopper that you stand up on the site, and you basically with a forklift, you lift these 3,000-pound bags into the silo, and you dump this essentially like dry pre-mixed concrete there, and then it's dispensed out of the bottom there. It goes from there into the mixer, and then from the mixer into the pump, and then it's sprayed onto the walls and the roof. So basically, you're doing a site mix, so that concrete can be placed quickly after it's mixed. Then you have the advantage that you can add accelerators or whatever else you want to add in there to try and get better buildup on the concrete walls. And so I will be using a crew of 3. It'll take us longer, but I'll be using a crew of 3 to basically mix and spray and finish that concrete. But by site mixing, you eliminate a bunch of extra costs that you need by, I mean, I don't want to speak negatively of stucco people, like that is hard work, but they just don't know about structural concrete. They just don't know about admixtures and all the stuff that the shotcrete people know about, like how do you get something that you can pump through a hose and then is sticky when it sticks on a wall. So that's the puzzle, and that's where I've been putting a lot of my emphasis, is essentially trying to solve that problem.
Yeah, I think I've never even thought about this before at all. It's interesting, and when you talk about it, it makes a whole lot of sense, especially if you want to build a home somewhere where it's not close to a concrete ready mix plant, and you want a concrete home. Then the logistics of it all. But if you're mixing it on site, and so, but you would still need typical foundation and everything.
So you have 2 options. You can do a slab foundation, and then you've got rebar coming up where the panels would attach to the rebar. And then the other option is you can essentially just do a perimeter footing on say you're on a sloped site. You could do a perimeter footing, and then it's going to be a little bit more complicated to get those panels to stand up level and all that. But you can basically spray the walls and the roof and all that, but not have the slab inside. And then you can, as long as you have rebar that's tying the walls into the floor, you can pour the floor after the walls and the roof are done, and you're essentially using your concrete walls as the form. So you eliminate the step of, framing up a wood slab foundation, especially if you're on a flat site, a slab foundation, that's the cheapest, best way to go. If you're trying to build on a sloped site, then it's better to use the panels as your form and pour the floor after the walls and the roof are done.
And can they design these things so you have use them at like a basement walls and you can backfill against them? Is there,
yeah,
or is that a limitation of it?
No, they're definitely designed for that. And yeah, you're going to need some extra rebar in there, and you'll need something thicker than that 2 inches of concrete. But you just build it up from the 2 inches.
Yeah, no, this is cool.
Yeah,
and then you can paint it or whatever once it cures, and paint it whatever color you want. I'm just on this website, and it looks like there's a lot of color.
Yeah. You can do a plaster type finish, a stucco type finish. You can paint it. You can just seal the concrete. You can just put a concrete sealer on there.
It looks like they put it on one of these houses. They put like a thin tile on it. Did you see that?
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, you've got that rigid, flat surface, so you're ready for tile. You don't have to worry about a wall flexing or something like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
So this is your business. This is what you're going to do, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. And when are you going to start building your first house?
So I'm doing the structural engineering. Well, the structural engineer is working on the drawings right now, so I'm hoping to have building permits soon, and then, there is a lead time on the panels right now. So basically, I'm hoping that by early next year, I'll be spraying concrete on the walls.
What's the lead time right now that you're seeing?
3 to 4 months for the panels.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Is that based on demand? Are they telling you, or is
it's all those Amazon warehouses that are. So they're in the process. Instruct. I'm not sure about RSG. Instruct is in the process of building a new plant in Nevada, and I think they've got. Well, I'm not sure. I've heard that there's plans for other plants throughout the U.S.
Huh. So do you see that? You think this is going to be well, obviously, if you're starting a business in this, you see a trend and a demand for this?
Yeah. So, with the rise in lumber prices, whatever cost advantage wood had, I think, is pretty much gone at this point. And I think the opportunity is, like, these skip panels have been around for, like, they've had ICC approval for, I forget it, maybe around 12 years or so, RSG has, but they haven't really caught on. And so I think the opportunity is that, just like we talked about, if you sub out the concrete to a stucco guy, and then you talk to electrical and plumbing subcontractors, the whole thing is just strange and has a new learning curve and lots of risks. So what's happened is the bids that people get are super high, but those high prices are not connected with the material and labor costs of actually doing it. They're connected with, just what I said, the risks and the learning curve and that kind of stuff. So to me, that's, for me, and really for anybody who wants to get into this stuff, that's the opportunity, is that, if you're only going 2 inches on both sides, a yard of concrete goes pretty far, right? So as a cost and the fact that you don't need sheetrock and all the rest of it, I mean, there's a lot of cost and simplicity and just all the stuff we talked about, other advantages. So that's why I think this is a really good way to do it. Maybe not everywhere, but for the West, the South, like big parts of the U.S.
Yeah, I think it. Well, I'm a concrete guy, so I think it's a cool look. So I'm a little biased, but definitely, I think I've shared on a podcast previously that's kind of my dream one day to have a concrete house, and I always imagined probably more what I'm used to. A cast in place version is kind of what I had in my head.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at your renderings and I'm seeing this. I'm like, maybe I need to rethink this a little bit. So obviously you've done the cost comparison and things like that, and this is competitive compared to. You're not even considering wood, but I guess you lined it up against the others as well.
Yes. Yeah. So the other thing that I'm planning on doing is not using subcontractors, and that's like a different conversation about how to do things like electrical and plumbing and HVAC. But it's a similar story to concrete. Like amazing stuff, amazing new products have come out within the last 20 years, and it's changed the equation about how you can do that stuff. So, what I have penciled out is that it's significantly cheaper than the current market, at least where I live, for what it costs to build houses. Everyone knows California is insane as far as housing prices, but it's kind of a supply problem, and so that's the goal.
Yeah. And I think this is a good place to end today. You shared early in this episode that you were going to share your adventure here.
Yes.
How are you documenting this? How can we follow along? What's your plan?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's reimagined.homes, and kind of draft right now, but everything will be up there, and that's also the best way to contact me is I have an email link. So anybody who wants to, has questions or whatever, feel free to contact me. I'll definitely get back to you.
Yeah, no, you've done a lot of homework, so take advantage of what Ron's offering. If you're looking at doing something like this, it's really cool stuff. Especially if you listen to this podcast, because you're probably concrete biased like me, so I think you'll like it. Ron, appreciate you coming on the show today and spending a bit of your time. Again, it's much appreciated.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance to share about this stuff.
Yep, maybe we'll get you back on and check on you next year on your progress.
Yeah, I would love that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another Concrete Logic podcast episode. If you got some value out of this or you enjoyed it, please share it with others. And if you could take a moment and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast listening app, I would appreciate it. We will catch you on the next episode. And now Mike Dunton's going to take us out.
Ring, ring, that alarm always sings. Couple hours before the sun comes up. Open up the side, put some diesel in the lights, and wait till the trucks roll up. Yeah, this ain't how most folks live their lives, dripping in sweat, working overtime. But while they're tying their ties for their 9 to 5s, we're out here changing these skylines with wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for $1, give thanks to the Lord above. Never make a man do something you can't prove. Hard work calls for a drink or two. Expect more, it's written in our blood. With wood, working hard to